It started on a Tuesday night when I was sitting alone in my apartment, staring at my laptop screen. The code I was writing for work wasn't making any sense anymore. My eyes were tired, my coffee had gone cold, and honestly, I was feeling pretty lonely. I'd been single for almost 2 years, and sometimes the silence in my place felt so heavy, I could barely breathe. That's when it happened. I felt this weird sensation, like someone had just walked into the room, except nobody had. It wasn't scary exactly. More like when you feel someone watching you, but when you turn around, there's nothing there. I shook my head, thinking I really needed to get more sleep, but then I felt it again. This time it was different. It was like a sharp breath, a gasp almost, but it wasn't coming from me. I actually put my hand on my chest to make sure I was breathing normally. I was. So where did that feeling come from? I tried to keep working, but I couldn't focus. Every few minutes I'd feel this presence again. Sometimes it felt curious, like someone peeking over my shoulder. Other times it felt concerned, especially when my thoughts got darker and I started thinking about how alone I felt in this big city. The next few days were strange. I'd be eating breakfast and suddenly feel a flutter of surprise that wasn't mine. I'd be walking to work and sense confusion, as if someone was trying to figure out what a traffic light was. At first I thought maybe I was having some kind of breakdown. The stress from work had been pretty intense lately, and I hadn't been taking care of myself. My best friend noticed something was off. We met for lunch on Thursday, and she kept asking if I was okay. I wanted to tell her what was happening, but how could I? Hey, I think there's someone living in my head. She'd probably drag me to a doctor, so I just said I was tired and changed the subject. But that night, lying in bed, I couldn't ignore it anymore. The presence was stronger than ever. Every time I had a thought, especially an emotional one, I'd feel this reaction. When I thought about my mom who passed away last year, the presence felt sad too. When I remembered a funny moment from childhood, it felt amused. I sat up in bed and decided to do something crazy. I thought very clearly and deliberately, if you're real, if there's really someone there, please let me know. I felt ridiculous, like I was talking to a ghost or something. What happened next changed everything. I felt this huge wave of emotion crash over me, except it wasn't my emotion. It was relief, excitement, and something like desperation all mixed together. Someone was trying so hard to communicate with me, and I could feel their frustration at not being able to use words. My heart started racing. This was real. This wasn't stress or lack of sleep or my imagination. There was actually someone else in my mind, experiencing my thoughts, feeling my feelings. And whoever or whatever it was, they'd been trying to get my attention for days. I spent the rest of the night awake, trying to understand what was happening. I thought about different things on purpose, testing it. When I thought about pizza, I felt confusion. When I thought about the ocean, I felt wonder and familiarity. Like whoever this was knew oceans very well. When I thought about the stars, the response was overwhelming. Joy, recognition, homesickness. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a ghost. This wasn't another human. The way this presence reacted to earth things, to human things, was too foreign, too surprised. But the stars? Those felt like home to them. I was sharing my mind with something not from this world. As the sun came up, I sat by my window watching the sky turn pink and orange. The presence was calmer now, almost peaceful. And I realized something that should have terrified me, but somehow didn't. I wasn't alone anymore. For the first time in years, I truly wasn't alone. I whispered out loud, even though I knew I didn't have to speak. I don't know who you are or where you came from, but I'm going to figure this out. We're going to figure this out together. The feeling I got back was pure gratitude, and maybe, just maybe, a little bit of hope. Over the weekend, I barely left my apartment. I called in sick to work on Friday, which I never do, but I needed time to process what was happening. I started keeping a notebook, writing down every sensation, every reaction from the presence. Patterns began to emerge. The presence seemed to be feminine somehow. I can't explain how I knew that, but I did. She reacted with surprise to the most ordinary things. But the taste of orange juice, the sound of rain on my window, the feeling of hot water in the shower. But she also seemed incredibly intelligent, like she was studying everything, learning. I tried different ways to communicate. I'd think questions and pay attention to the emotional responses. Are you far away? Yes, a feeling of vast distance. Are you trying to get back? Sadness and frustration. Are you stuck? Fear and confirmation. By Sunday evening, I understood the basics. She was from somewhere far away in space. She'd somehow gotten connected to my mind by accident. She couldn't communicate in words because her species didn't use language the way we do. They used pure thought, pure feeling. And she was trapped in this connection, unable to return to wherever her body actually was. I thought of a name for her. I don't know why I picked it. It just came to me. When I thought it, I felt her happiness, her acceptance of it. Finally, she had an identity, even if it was one I'd given her. That's when my new life began. A life shared with someone who wasn't human, someone I couldn't see or touch, but who was more present than anyone I'd ever known. The next few weeks were the strangest of my life. I went back to work, but everything felt different now. Sitting in meetings, I'd feel her confusion at human politics and office drama. When my boss gave me a tight deadline, I felt her concern for my stress levels. When I finally finished a difficult project, her pride in me was almost overwhelming. She was learning fast, really fast. At first, she could only send me emotions, but gradually, I started getting impressions, almost like images, but not quite. Concepts, ideas, understanding. She was learning English by experiencing my thoughts, and I was learning her way of communication by feeling her reactions. I started talking to her in my head all the time. I'd narrate my day like I was showing her around. This is coffee, I'd think as I took a sip. It's bitter, but it wakes you up. I felt her curiosity and then her surprise when the caffeine hit my system. She experienced it through me, the way it made my heart beat faster, my thoughts clearer. Walking through the park became an adventure. I'd lived in this city for 5 years and barely noticed the trees anymore, but feeling her wonder at the green leaves, the way sunlight filtered through branches, the sound of birds singing. It was like seeing everything for the first time. She made the ordinary magical again, but it wasn't all beautiful. She experienced my bad days too. When I had an argument with my friend over something stupid, she felt my anger and hurt. When I scrolled through social media late at night and felt inadequate comparing my life to others, she felt that pain too. And I could feel her wanting to comfort me, trying to send me calm and reassurance. About a month in, something big happened. I was thinking about her, wondering what she looked like, where she came from, and suddenly I got something new. Not an emotion, but information. A flood of images and sensations that weren't quite either. I saw a place with 3 moons hanging in a purple sky. I felt what it was like to move through water that wasn't water, thicker and warmer. I understood, somehow, that her people didn't have bodies like ours. They were more like energy, consciousness that could take different forms. She'd been part of a mission, exploring distant parts of space. Her people could project their consciousness across vast distances, observing without interfering. But something had gone wrong. When they were observing Earth, studying humans, her consciousness had gotten tangled with mine. Some kind of quantum accident that her people didn't fully understand. Now she was stuck, existing in 2 places at once, which was slowly draining her energy. I felt scared for her. How long could this last? What would happen to her if we couldn't fix it? But she sent me reassurance. Her people were looking for her. They knew something had happened. They were trying to find a way to bring her back. The problem was, I realized I didn't want her to go. She'd become part of my life, part of me. Every morning, the first thing I felt was her presence, like a warm greeting. Every night, her peaceful contentment as I drifted to sleep. She was my constant companion, and the thought of losing her hurt more than I wanted to admit. My life started changing in other ways, too. I stopped going out as much. Hanging out with friends felt hollow compared to the deep connection I had with her. They talked about surface things, weather, and sports, and gossip, but she and we shared everything. My memories, my fears, my dreams. She knew me better than anyone ever had. My friend confronted me about it. We were supposed to meet for dinner and I'd canceled for the third time. She showed up at my apartment instead, worried. She thought I was depressed, isolating myself. How could I explain that I wasn't alone? That I'd never been less alone? I tried to tell her.
I really did, but the words sounded crazy even to my own ears.
A telepathic alien? Connected to my mind? She looked at me with such concern that I backtracked, said I was joking, just stressed from work. She left unconvinced, and I felt terrible. Through our connection, the presence felt my guilt and sadness at lying to my friend. That night, I made a decision. If she was stuck here with me, and I was apparently stuck with her, we needed to make the most of it. I started showing her everything I loved about being human. I cooked my grandmother's recipe for pasta and let her experience the smell, the taste, the memory of family dinners. I put on my favorite music and felt her amazement at how sound could create emotion. I watched the sunset from my roof and shared the feeling of awe that never got old. She shared things too. Through our connection, I experienced concepts that humans don't have words for. Ways of thinking that were completely alien but somehow made sense. She showed me how her people saw time, not as a line but as a shape you could move through. She shared the feeling of traveling between stars, of touching the fabric of space itself. 3 months in, something shifted between us. I'd been thinking about her before falling asleep, wondering what it would be like if she were here physically, if I could actually see her, talk to her with my voice instead of my thoughts. And I felt something new from her, something that felt like longing, like wanting. I realized with a jolt that this had gone beyond friendship. I'd fallen in love with her, with an alien being I'd never seen, who existed millions of miles away, who I could never touch or hold. And from what I could feel through our bond, she felt the same way about me. It was the most wonderful and most painful realization of my life. Because what future could we possibly have? She needed to get back to her people, back to her body, and I needed to let her go. But my heart wasn't listening to logic anymore. Every time I thought about her now, I felt her gasp, that sharp intake of breath that had started this whole thing. And I thought about her constantly, every moment of every day. 4 months after our connection began, my life was falling apart. I'd been put on a performance review at work. I wasn't getting my projects done on time, kept spacing out in meetings. My manager asked if everything was okay at home. I said yes, because how could I explain the truth? My friend had stopped reaching out as much. I'd canceled on her too many times, made too many excuses. My family thought something was seriously wrong with me. My brother called one weekend worried because I hadn't shown up for our mom's birthday dinner. I'd completely forgotten about it. I felt awful, but I'd been so absorbed in my connection with her that the rest of the world had faded away. But here's the thing. Even as my regular life crumbled, I'd never been happier. She filled a space inside me I didn't even know was empty. We developed our own way of communicating now. I could send her complex thoughts and she understood. She could share entire concepts with me in seconds. We'd spend hours just existing together, experiencing the world through my senses and exploring ideas through her perspective. She told me more about her situation. Her people had located her, finally tracked down the quantum signature of our connection. But there was a problem. The entanglement between our minds had grown stronger over time. We were becoming more intertwined, not less. Her consciousness was adapting to exist in my brain, changing my neural pathways to accommodate her presence. Her people could separate us, but they needed to do it soon. The longer we stayed connected, the more dangerous it became. For her, because maintaining consciousness in two places was exhausting her life force. For me, because my brain was literally being rewired, and they weren't sure if I'd be okay once she was gone. I should have been terrified. I should have agreed immediately to the separation. But instead, I felt desperate. I didn't want to lose her. And I could feel through our bond that she didn't want to leave either. She confessed something that changed everything. In her 80 years of life, which was young for her species, she'd never experienced anything like this. Her people fought and communicated, but they didn't feel the way humans do. They didn't have emotions like ours. Through me, she discovered what it meant to truly feel: joy and sorrow, anger and peace, excitement and contentment. She'd tasted food and heard music and felt the sun's warmth. She'd fallen in love. Going back to her old existence felt like death to her. She'd rather fade away as part of me than return to being only herself. I couldn't let her think like that. But I also couldn't imagine life without her anymore. So I made a decision that everyone would probably call stupid. I quit my job. I took all the money I'd saved up, not much, but enough. I bought a plane ticket to South America. I'd been reading about radio telescopes and SETI research. If her people were looking for her, they had to be sending some kind of signal. And I'd read about this massive telescope array in Chile, in the desert, where scientists searched for signals from space. It was a long shot, but I had to try. Maybe I could help her people find her. Maybe I could find a way to make this permanent, instead of breaking it apart. I didn't tell her what I was planning. I kept my thoughts focused on other things, which was harder than you'd think when someone's literally in your head. But I managed it. I booked everything, packed a bag, and left. The flight was long. I'd never been out of the country before. As the plane took off, I felt her confusion at the sensation, then her understanding as she realized we were flying. Her wonder at seeing clouds from above, even though she'd traveled between stars, was touching. Human flight amazed her because it was so primitive, so brave. Landing in Chile, traveling by bus to the desert, it all felt surreal. The landscape was so different from home. Rocky, dry, mountains in the distance, and at night, more stars than I'd ever seen. She felt something through me that I can only describe as homesickness. The stars called to her. The research station was smaller than I expected. I showed up at the gate like a crazy person, asking to speak to whoever was in charge. The security guard looked at me like I'd lost my mind. But I was persistent, and eventually, someone agreed to talk to me. Her name was Dr. Rodriguez, an astronomer from Mexico, studying signals from deep space. I told her my story, everything, knowing how insane it sounded. She listened with professional patience, clearly thinking I was delusional. But then I offered proof. Through my connection, she gave me coordinates. Exact numbers, the location in space where her ship was positioned. I recited them to Dr. Riven, Rodriguez telling her she'd find an anomaly there, a signal that shouldn't exist. The doctor looked skeptical but agreed to check, probably just to get rid of me. She made some calls, accessed some database, and then her face changed. Her eyes went wide. She pulled up a screen and showed me. There was something at those exact coordinates, a signal they'd detected weeks ago, but couldn't identify, something that didn't match any known natural phenomenon. Dr. Rodriguez's hands were shaking as she looked at me. "How did you know about this?" she asked. "We haven't published this data, it's classified research." I felt her presence surge with hope in my mind, and I knew that maybe, just maybe, we had a chance. Within 2 weeks, the small research station in Chile became the center of the biggest story in human history. Dr. Rodriguez had made some calls, shared the data, and suddenly scientists from around the world were arriving. Government officials came, the media showed up. Someone leaked the story about the guy claiming telepathic contact with aliens, and my face was everywhere. They called me the Mind Link Man in the headlines. I got interviewed on video calls by news stations. Scientists wanted to study me. I had to do brain scans, psychological evaluations, answer the same questions over and over. How did it start? What does it feel like? Can you prove it's real? The proof came in small ways. She'd give me information, technical details about physics and math that I never studied. Scientists would verify it. She'd provide coordinates for things in space that matched their observations. Slowly, skepticism turned to shocked belief. The military got involved, which made me nervous. Men in suits would ask questions with serious faces, wanting to know if she'd shared any technology, any information about defenses or weapons. I told them the truth. She wasn't like that. Her people were explorers, not soldiers. They seemed disappointed through all the chaos. She was my anchor. At night, alone in whatever room they'd put me in, I'd feel her presence and know I wasn't crazy. This was real. She was real, and we were in this together. The scientists worked around the clock to decode the signal from her ship and establish real communication. I helped however I could, acting as a translator between human thinking and her species' way of understanding. She was learning our mathematics, our language structures, trying to help bridge the gap. After 3 months of intense work, they did it. They established a two-way communication channel with the ship. The moment it happened, I felt her joy, and also her fear. Her people could save her now, but saving her meant losing me. The message from her people was detailed and came through a combination of mathematical patterns and conceptual frameworks we'd developed. They explained that they'd been desperately searching for her. They'd figured out what happened, this quantum entanglement between species that had never occurred before, and they developed a procedure to separate us safely. The good news was they could save her life, return her consciousness fully to her body on the ship. The bad news made my heart sink. The separation would be complete. Total. Every trace of our connection would be severed. It would be like we never met. She wouldn't be able to reach me across the distance of space. We'd be truly, permanently apart. There was more bad news. The scans they'd done on my brain showed what she'd warned me about. My neural pathways had changed significantly to accommodate her presence. The longer we stayed connected, the more I was becoming dependent on the connection. If we waited too long, my brain might not function properly without her. I could have seizures, personality changes, maybe worse.
They gave us a deadline. 3 days.
In 3 days, the communication window would close, and they'd have to wait months before they could try again. By then, it might be too late for both of us. I sat in my room that night, staring at the ceiling, feeling her presence wrapped around my consciousness like always. We were both quiet, both processing what this meant. After everything we'd been through, it came down to this. Save both our lives but lose each other forever, or stay together and probably destroy each other. Dr. Rodriguez came to talk to me. She'd become a friend through all this, one of the few people who treated me like a person instead of a phenomenon. She sat down and told me about her daughter who died from cancer 5 years ago. Only 16 years old, gone too soon. The hardest thing I ever did, she said quietly, was let her go. Watching her suffer, knowing I couldn't save her. But in the end, love isn't about holding on. It's about wanting what's best for them, even when it tears you apart. I knew she was right, but knowing something and accepting it are different things. I spent the next 2 days doing something I'd been avoiding. I opened up to her completely, sharing every memory I'd been holding back, every feeling I hadn't fully expressed. I told her about my childhood, my fears, my dreams for a future I'd never have. I shared the experience of being human in all its messy, complicated beauty. She did the same. She showed me her world in detail, the beauty of her home planet with its 3 moons and purple skies. She shared her memories of growing up, learning to project consciousness across space, the excitement of joining the exploration mission. She showed me her people, beings of pure thought and energy who'd never known the intensity of human emotion. We made a promise to each other. No matter what happened, we'd live in a way that honored what we'd shared. She'd return to her people, but never forget what it meant to feel, to love, to be connected to someone so completely. And I'd continue my life knowing that somewhere in the universe, someone understood me in a way no one else ever would. On the morning of the 3rd day, I was taken to a medical facility they'd set up. The equipment looked like science fiction, a combination of human technology and specifications provided by her people. I'd be sedated during the procedure. They'd use quantum transmitters to carefully untangle our consciousness, separating us thread by thread. "Doctor!" Rodriguez held my hand as they prepared the sedation. I looked at her and said, "Tell her story. Make sure people know she was real, that what we had was real." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I promise." The last thing I felt before the sedation took hold was her presence, stronger than ever, wrapping around me like an embrace, and a single thought that wasn't mine: "Thank you for showing me how to be alive." Then everything went dark. I woke up 12 hours later. The medical team was standing around, checking monitors, looking concerned but relieved. Dr. Rodriguez smiled when she saw my eyes open.
Welcome back,
she said softly, but I barely heard her. The first thing I noticed, the only thing that mattered, was the silence. Not the absence of sound, but the absence of her. My mind was my own again, just mine, and it felt like a piece of my soul had been cut out. I started crying right there in the hospital bed, and I couldn't stop. The emptiness was overwhelming. For almost a year, I'd never been truly alone. Every thought, every feeling, every moment had been shared. Now, there was nothing. Just me and my thoughts echoing in a space that felt too big. The first few weeks were brutal. I went through all the stages of grief, sometimes cycling through them multiple times a day. Denial came first. Maybe the connection was just dormant. Maybe I could feel her if I tried hard enough. I'd concentrate until my head hurt, reaching out with my mind. But there was nothing. Then anger. Why did we have to separate? Why couldn't the universe let us have this one impossible thing? I wasn't angry at her, never at her, but at the circumstances, the physics, the vast distance of space that made our connection impossible to maintain. Depression hit hard. I'd stay in bed for days, not wanting to face a world where she didn't exist in my mind anymore. Food had no taste. Music felt empty. The sunset I'd loved sharing with her just reminded me of what I'd lost. The research facility kept me on for observation, making sure my brain was adapting okay to functioning without her. The scans showed my neural pathways were slowly reverting, but some changes were permanent. I'd always be different from who I was before I met her, in a way that was comforting. Proof that it wasn't a dream. Dr. Rodriguez became my lifeline during those dark weeks. She understood grief, understood loss. She didn't try to cheer me up or tell me to move on. She just sat with me, let me talk about her when I needed to, distracted me with work when I couldn't handle thinking about it anymore. Slowly, very slowly, I started to heal. I remembered our promise to honor what we'd shared. She'd want me to live, really live, not just exist in a fog of grief. So I tried. I started writing everything down, every memory of our time together, every sensation, every conversation we'd had in thought. I wrote for hours every day, filling notebooks with our story. Dr. Rodriguez helped me turn it into something publishable. She said the world needed to know what had happened, needed to understand what we'd shared. The book came out 6 months after the separation. I donated all the money to SETI research and programs studying consciousness. I wanted something good to come from our story, wanted to help make it possible for future connections between species, even if ours couldn't last. I moved to New Mexico, taking a job at a research institute studying interspecies communication. They were using what we'd learned from my connection with her to develop new ways of potentially communicating with alien life. I threw myself into the work, helping scientists understand the differences between human thought and the conceptual communication her people used. I started dating again, cautiously. A teacher I met at a coffee shop. We went out a few times. She was kind, funny, easy to talk to. But I couldn't help comparing every conversation to the depth of connection I'd had with her. It wasn't fair to either of us. I apologized, and we went our separate ways, still friends. My old friend from back home reached out. She'd read my book, finally understood why I'd been so distant. We talked for hours, rebuilding our friendship. It felt good to reconnect with my old life, even though I was a different person now. A year after the separation, I had mostly made peace with it. The grief was still there, probably always would be, but it had softened into something more like bittersweet nostalgia. I could think about her without falling apart. I could remember the good parts without being destroyed by the loss. The Research Institute gave me time off for the anniversary. I went back to Chile, back to that desert research station where everything had changed. Dr. Rodriguez came with me. We'd become close friends, bound by the extraordinary thing we'd witnessed together. We drove out to a spot far from the lights, where the stars were incredible. The Milky Way stretched across the sky like a river of light. I sat there in the sand, looking up, and for the first time in a year, I let myself really think about her. Not pushing the memories away, not protecting myself from the pain, just remembering. I thought about the first time I felt her presence, the way she'd gasped when my thoughts turned emotional, how she'd learned to understand me, and I'd learned to feel her responses, the wonder she'd felt experiencing human things through me, the way we'd fallen in love across an impossible distance, the sacrifice we'd both made to save each other. And then I felt it, so faint I almost missed it. A whisper of a presence, an echo of a gasp, like she'd heard me thinking about her across the vast distance of space. It was gone in a second, probably my imagination, my mind playing tricks because I wanted so badly to feel her again. But Dr. Rodriguez was looking at her equipment, a portable scanner she'd brought to monitor the cosmic background radiation. Her face had gone pale in the starlight. "There was something?" she said quietly. "A quantum fluctuation. Perfectly aligned with your neural signature." It came from the coordinates where her ship was. She looked at me, and I could see she was trying to decide whether to give me false hope or tell me the truth. She chose truth. It's not proof of anything. It could be random chance. The universe is full of quantum fluctuations, but the timing, the signature, the location. It's exactly what we'd expect if someone light years away was trying to reach out. I smiled, tears running down my face, not from sadness this time. I looked up at the stars, at the infinite possibility of the universe, and whispered, "I think about you too. Every day I hope you're okay. I hope you remember." Maybe she heard me. Maybe the connection we'd shared had changed us both so fundamentally that some echo of it would always remain, rippling across space and time. Or maybe it was just coincidence, the universe being random as it always is. But I chose to believe. I chose to believe that some connections are too deep to fully break. That love, real love, transcends the laws of physics. That somewhere out there among the stars an alien being pauses in her work sometimes, feeling something she can't quite explain, thinking of a human she once knew. And here on Earth, that human looks up at the night sky and knows, absolutely knows, that he's not alone. Not really. Because even across millions of miles, even separated by the vast emptiness of space, they're still connected. Not in the way they were before, but in the way that matters most. In memory, in impact, in the permanent change they made to each other's existence. I visit that spot in the desert every year now. I look up at the stars and think of her. And sometimes, just sometimes, I feel that whisper of presence, that phantom gasp, that echo of something that was too powerful to disappear completely. Dr. Bran, Rodriguez tells me that quantum entanglement is forever. Once two particles are entangled, they remain connected, no matter how far apart they are. Maybe consciousness works the same way. Maybe when two minds touch as deeply as ours did, they stay entangled at some fundamental level. I live a good life now. I have friends, purpose, work that matters. I've helped advance our understanding of consciousness and communication. The research I've done might help the next person who experiences what I did. Might make it possible for humans and aliens to connect without the tragic ending. But I won't lie and say I don't miss her. Every single day, I miss her. The completeness I felt when she was part of me. The way we understood each other without words. The beauty of experiencing life through two perspectives at once. Yet, I'm grateful too. Grateful we had that time. Grateful she showed me what it means to truly connect with someone. Grateful that in this vast, cold universe, for one brief, beautiful moment, two beings from different worlds found each other and made each other whole. And if that quantum signature Dr. Rodriguez detected was real, if she really can sense when I think of her, then she knows this. She knows I'm okay. She knows I remember. She knows that what we had was real and nothing, not distance or time or the laws of physics can take that away. I think of her always. And somewhere in the stars, maybe, she gasps.
And that's enough.